Hello, and welcome to this webinar from Times Ascent, which talks about careers in human resources. Now, this is an interesting topic for many reasons. One, of course, is the fact that it's a broad topic, and we are expected to do justice on the subject in 60 minutes, going to be a tough ask. Having said that, why is this topic relevant? Because majority of the people who are actually joining in today are people who are looking to enter the workforce, number one. Number two, of course, the entire year that has gone by, the previous year, we have seen that there are titanic shifts that have emerged in the way we work, in the way workforce has to evolve, in the way that workplaces have to evolve. And if you look at what everybody has been talking about in all the articles that you see, which are being written by great consulting organizations or and thought leaders, they are saying that this is HR's moment of reckoning. And therefore, it is the actually best time for anybody who's looking to get into human resources. The problem there is that human resources as a field is so vast, and as a field, human resources itself has been undergoing so many changes. For example, earlier we used to talk about the fact that there was a factory setup, there was a factory HR, then services came in, then there was service HR. In the early 2000s, the concept of HR business partnering came in. Then you actually started moving from employee engagement to employee experience to now people are talking about talent experience. Along the way, employer branding started to come into the play. And now people are talking about employee psychological contract, the diversity, inclusion. I mean, you name it. In fact, the HR, if you look at all the kinds of new concepts that have become flavor of the season, it would be almost like a book. And that presents a huge challenge. How do you cut through all this and get back to the brass tacks as to what is the core job of human resources organization? Number one. And number two, what are some of the skills that are required? And number three, if I want to get into human resources as a human resource professional, where do I start? What skills do I build so that 5 years from now or 7 years from now, I can say that I'm a full stack HR professional? In fact, the whole world is now talking about multi-potentialites. People, the age of specialization, they say, has actually gone out. Now, multi-potentialites will rule the workforce. Therefore, the next question is, how can we be in HR yet become multi-potentialites? How can we draw learnings from neurosciences? How can we draw learnings from supply chain? How can we draw learnings from marketing? And some of these concepts is what we will actually try and talk about. Now, in order for us to have some such a broad topic addressed, no better people than people who are actually practitioners of HR and thought leaders in their own way. And at that note, I wanted to quickly introduce the people who will try and help answer some of these questions that we set out to do. In no specific order, the first speaker that we have is Aman. Aman is an HR leader with more than 17 years of experience in India, APAC, and GCC region. He is at the moment with Tata Communications. He has worked in various industries like telecom, oil and gas, real estate, banking, finance, government, and public sector. In fact, he has worked in organization design, manpower planning, competency frameworks, talent management, performance management systems, and so on and so forth. And in fact, his insights would be really valuable. So Aman, if you can just wave and say hi to the audience, then I can move to the next speaker.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure being here and look forward to our interaction.
Sure. Thank you, Aman. The second speaker that I want to introduce is Shashwati. Now, Shashwati is HR leader with more than 20 or more than 2 decades of experience in people, process, and strategy. She is at the moment working with a group company of Samsung called Shale India, and she is leading and managing the talent interventions in the organization. In fact, she works to improve efficiencies, skill development, and review. And she also spearheads the skill needs as per the organization strategy. And she ensures that the organization is prepared for future. We talk about future of work, Shashwati actually is living it. In the digital world, Shashwati has played a key role in the process of digitization of HR processes. She has worked with media, advertising, IT, and IT-enabled services, where she has actually contributed as a solution provider and enabler rather than only a support function. In fact, Shashwati has also been awarded by World HRD Congress as the top 100 and top 101 HR minds in India. She has also won top 101 Fabulous HR Leaders Award, And she also was awarded the Heroes Award for Top Women HR Leaders by Observe Now, which was presented by Ms. Maneka Gandhi. Shashwati, if you can just say hi to people, that then I can move to.
Hello, and thank you very much, Pancham.
Well, thanks, Shashwati. The third panelist is Ankur. Ankur works with Airtel, and Ankur is a seasoned HR professional who has multi-industry experience in various domains of human resources. He was actually heading HR for Airtel Rajasthan Circle. Before that, he was with Marico, where he was in the corporate HR function, managing talent acquisition, and also international business HR. His areas of interest are talent management, HR transformation, and talent acquisition. So if you look at all the speakers that we have, between them, we are actually covering the entire gamut of exercises. And in fact, oh, I can see Dr. Ankita also joined in. In fact, so let me also quickly introduce Dr. Ankita. Dr. Ankita is Senior Vice President and Global Head of HR for Signex Datamatics. She has over 19 years of progressive experience in managing and leading various aspects of HR, spanning high-paced business domains of IT-enabled services. In fact, Dr. Ankita herself is awarded a multi-award winner. She has won Forbes India's Top 100 Great People Manager. Then she also won Women's Excellence Awards 2020. She was also named CHR of the Year by Global HR Excellency, World HRD Congress in 2020. She was also awarded Business Person of the Year 2020 in the 12th Asian Literature Festival, which was Bharat Nirman 2020 in Delhi. And Dr. Ankita's areas of interest are employee engagement, future of work and workforce, IT and technology, strategic business, and student engagement, which is campus programs. Right. So all in all, I think we are going to have an interesting conversation. Now, for those of you who are actually already experienced in the way we do our webinars, we involve the audience quite a bit. And in fact, just to make sure that the speakers are also able to provide answers which are catered to your needs, I will direct the first poll now to the audiences. So audiences, we will request you to take the first poll, which actually will tell our speakers what kind of experience levels do we have so that we can tailor our responses to them. So I'm launching the poll and let's see. So I'm going to close the poll now, and then maybe we will move to the first one. So broadly speaking, so we have actually an interesting skew. So there are two sets of people. People with up to 1 year, 0 to 1 years of experience. They are the ones who have a sizable audience. And the second set of people who have are actually people with 3 years of experience in HR or more. So it will be interesting to see how the questions vary. So at appropriate times, we will continue to look at these questions. So one of the first questions that has already come out, which of course anyways was the first question that we thought we would ask. So one of the questions that I can see, and I'm going to direct that question to Shashwati. Shashwati, the question is, as a beginner in HR domain, you are mostly hired for recruitment roles. What are the other domains to start off a good career? So that is a question that has come from the audiences. So let's start with that, and then we will continue to build on those.
Okay, so I'm just talking from my experience. Now, in last 20 years plus, 21 years plus, I don't think I have ever hired fresher for honestly TA. Usually I hire fresher for HR operations, not for TA. Now I know there is a trend. there is a trend that we do hire sometimes freshers for TA role, and most times, like the question you have put up, and we usually tell them that okay, fine, schedule interviews, talk to people, do the calling, etc., which are the low end hiring job. But for me, I honestly feel that's not the right approach, because to do TA, you need to know business. To know business, first you have to understand the whole organization, and you can do it better if you are in HR operations than in TA. You should move to TA a little later, because then it's faster. You have to talk about the organization. You are the face of the organization. That's a very critical function. So even to move you into that function, I need to have the comfort zone that you understand the culture of the organization, you understand what the organization is all about. Then you become the face. So I think it's HR operations is one area where I think one should usually start with to get a feel, and then you move to TA, you will do better.
Interesting. Well, thanks a lot, Shashwati. So I wanted to actually, because this is the question where people would have varied opinions. So I thought maybe I'll also, ask if there is any another set of opinion on the subject, because we
Yes,
have seen that
must.
it actually Prashpati's experience is actually very interesting, because we have on one hand corporates who are actually hiring people in administrative roles like HR operations, which are very important. But you also have people like Korn Ferry who are going to campuses and hiring freshers to look at searches. Although it is not a client-facing role to start with, but this is about getting to know how the CTQs relate with searches. So Dr. Ankita, when you hire people who don't have a lot of experience in HR, or when you want to hire people from campuses directly, what kind of roles do you put them in?
I think we are Pancham open for most of the roles when we talk about HR in general, to start with, be it HR operations or recruitment, or for that matter, employee engagement or fun at work. It completely depends on the individual when you are interviewing what his or her interest area is, what they feel they are good at, what they feel they'll be able to explore and contribute most to. That becomes really important, because not everybody would be very comfortable in general, handling probably employee engagement, wherein the other person probably would take more interest where they have more strategic targets and it's more number driven. So it completely depends on the freshers. I think at least as per my experience and the way we hire, we take freshers in all HR functions, and there are a couple of freshers who have taken more for specialized roles where they just take care of one particular function. But at the same time, we hire a few more who are taking care of more general role, where they not only just take care of one profile but a couple of profiles at the same point in time.
Interesting. So, Ankur, in fact, so now we have two different sets of responses. Of course, Shashwati talked about the fact that they prefer to hire for HR operations. Dr. Ankita's view is that it depends on the person. It is not necessary that we will only hire for operations. So in your experience, where all do you deploy people who don't have a lot of experience? We can't hear you, Ankur.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, from my Airtel perspective, I think most of the fresher hiring happens through the campus, and these people kind of come to us in form of management trainees or young leaders. And the starting point for us is that we don't put them directly in any role. We don't do that, because we have to map their aptitude. We have to kind of look at what kind of role would they fit in. So we put them on projects. So, and when I say projects, these could be projects in any of the verticals. These could be projects in the talent management. These could be projects in the business HR. These could also be in the recruitment and the sourcing space. So kind of we give them an exposure for project for 3 to 6 months, multiple projects, and then basis the aptitude, strengths, and the interest of the individual, we kind of deploy them in a particular vertical. So that is the approach that we tend to follow.
Interesting. So that's actually another perspective, that you hire people as management trainees, maybe do rotational assignments before you deploy them full time. Aman,
Just to add to that, I think that's true for most of the bigger organizations because, in fact, Samsung does the same thing, right? They put you, I think Airtel calls it the young tigers. So, used to, I don't know if the same name here now. So,
Young Leaders Program, YLP, or Young
yeah,
Leaders
Young
Program
Leaders
is
Program. Yeah. So, I think most of the bigger organizations do this. But for wherever that, for us, TA is revenue because it's a service industry, it's an FTE model. So, it's a revenue model, it's the most critical function. So, we take the approach that first understand and then move to the most critical function.
also, absolutely. And in fact, the whole idea is to look at diverse perspectives so that people also get complete span of things possible, because a lot of people have they have apprehensions. And they also have preconceived notions about what they will be doing. And that's, in fact, I would imagine that the question that was asked was very specific, that they get into recruitment. I'm sure this question has emerged because of the experience of the person's colleagues or people, so and so forth. And that's the whole point. So, Aman, now, I'm directing the same question to you before we move to the next ones.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
so,
it's interesting what you say about the question, because whenever I've visited campuses, right, one of the experiences that I have had is, even when you ask, young budding professionals, what all roles are there in HR, I'm very surprised to see that even from, top tier colleges, there's a very limited understanding of what all career choices are there in HR. So
yeah.
people either think that it's recruitment or comp and ben, whatever are the electives that are basically offered in various campuses in the MBAs. People only have that kind of a mindset, and I think that was one of the reasons why this question was also asked. From our perspective in Tata Communications, we deploy people across. We deployed some of our very successful leaders in the HR business space, HR business partners who have grown to be very good business partners in recruitment, even in comp and ben. We've got very, very good talent that we've got into comp and ben early on, into talent management, which, uh, you know, uh, uh, and also, we do experiment, something, Pancham, that you talked about, and we'll talk about more during the course of this webinar. We also, have now increasingly looking at students beyond the HR discipline, as we are trying to explore more around the themes of design thinking, agility, bringing in more digitization, bringing in future of work. So there's more and more value, and there's a very interesting concept that we bring in of the HR product manager, which I'm sure we'll touch upon as we go along. So I think it won't be right to say that you can begin your career in any one. It depends upon the personal aptitude of the professional, the young professional, and where they see themselves growing. So I think anywhere is a good place to start, as long as you have a good guidance and a good entry into.
So it's actually interesting that all of us talked about something very. So there was one thing that I at least found common in terms of theme, and the theme was that, for example, when we start out any job, it doesn't matter which field we get into. There are two things that we must do. One, of course, we have to learn the organization. We have to learn the work. The second thing, of course, is we have to do the administrative piece first. And because unless we are able to do the administrative piece well, we cannot graduate to the next pieces. And this actually fits in beautifully with even the hiring assessments that you see nowadays. For example, we hire for people who are conscientious. The assessments are designed to hire people who have very high work ethic. Why? These people are not experts, but these people we know will give their 100%, and they will be very quick to learn. And then, of course, when you have some of these basic ingredients in place, then they can actually continue to grow. It's absolutely fine. So in fact, on that note, I will come to Shashwati again. So Shashwati, in your organization, since you talked about the fact that you moved people into operations, now let's say if we want to become HR business partners over a period of time, so what is the typical route that your organization provides to these people?
So honestly, Pancham, let me again go against the tide, and I will say that I believe each and every function, I have a T and L&D, I have operations plus performance management together, and I have TA. I believe each and every person has to be a HR business partner in today's date. A TA cannot say, I will not be a HR business partner. L&D cannot say, I will not be an HR business partner. So I think that terminology is going to become redundant. By each and every member of the team, the first job is don't do anything, don't work for the first 3 weeks, go and learn what is the business all about. Don't do anything else. Even my L&D, you cannot do proper capability mapping and enhancement until unless you know what is the business strategy and how to map the business role to the people skills. So until unless you do that, so for me, I believe that terminology is going to be redundant. You have to be a HR business partner, whatever role, small, big, that you are doing in the HR functional area. So I think that it starts with that. It doesn't end to that, or it does not lead to that. It starts with that.
So actually, interesting thing that you talked about. So Shashwati's thought is that HR business partner is not a destination; it's part of the journey throughout. That's what you're saying.
100%, 100%.
So on that note, actually, I will come to Ankur and then Aman before I come to Dr. Angita. So Ankur, for example, you have done a lot of recruitment and talent acquisition kind of roles. So people who are considered your best recruiters, for example, are these people fresh out of colleges, or they move through some other domain before they come to talent acquisition?
Look, talent acquisition is not only about simple sourcing, it's also about the assessment. And I think talent recruiters are the gatekeepers for the companies. So they build companies for the future. And I kind of resonate with what Shashwati was saying, that they should understand the role for which they are hiring. They should understand the business context. Only then they can do the proper screening. So to answer your question, most of the seasoned recruiters who get into the assessment mode. So one is the operations part of recruitment, which can be done by somebody who's junior. He can be a fresher, which is all coordination with candidates, getting the forms filled and all that stuff. But the strategic part of recruitment is something where you require a core experience and experience into the business for which you are hiring, right? So that is how we look at it.
Okay, interesting. So actually, I was intrigued by both the things that Ankur you talked about, and before that, Shashwati, you talked about business partnering as part of the core job, and then you actually look at the fact that I may be a learning person, but I'm a learning business partner. I may be an HR operations person, but I'm an operations business partner. So, Aman, you were talking about HR product managers. So how? So the role is fine, but how do you manage around the role? The support system to make it successful, because I would imagine that the threads that Shashwati and Ankur talked about would actually cue into what you had in mind when you talked about HR product managers.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometime back, we kind of came up with this whole idea of saying that how can we create consumer grade, experience for our employees? And we said, okay, taking a cue from the way, the Amazons and the Airbnbs of the world work, right? And looking at how on all our processes, there is now a digital layer that needs to go, considering that, we are a global company and we cater to more than 20 countries across 40 nationalities, right? So how can our, employee experiences be consistent across? So we said, okay, we'll have a role, which is like a product manager within HR, which encompasses both what Shashwati and Ankur are talking about. So this role then becomes the pivot around which your HR programs, your platforms, cater. And they then, applying the principles of product management, design thinking, and working with the technology groups, on agile methodology. So we actually have 90-day sprints on most of our processes, and we say, okay, we will deploy these, and we go out and we do our product prototype. So all that we do is based on that approach. And what we are now doing is we are bringing in talent from other domains into HR. to help us look at that. So, so we are experimenting with a lot in terms of the way we would want to see the whole, the HR function grow, and it gives us wonderful insights in terms of when we do our prototype workshops, when we take out and we look at the edges, and it's just not looking at how well a process will work, but also looking at the edges, the extreme users, what is it that they are experiencing, and bringing that into the fold. So coming back to the moot point in terms of HR careers, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because I believe that going forward, it's going to become very, very interesting, and domains are going to, kind of merge together in terms of, the competencies and the skills that you bring to the table. So it's not just that someone coming in and, doing the day in and day out of HR operations in an HR shared service and then moving up the ranks. No, I think, if someone has got the critical thinking ability, has got the ability to look at data, has the ability to apply UI UX, has the ability to apply any kind of empathy and other elements of design thinking into it, you can create a career in HR from where you are.
In fact, thanks a lot, Aman, because what you have done is you have provided me a brilliant segue to come back to Dr. Ankita. In fact, there is a direct question to you from Asha, and she has asked, Ankita ma'am, nowadays there is a trend of doing SHRM. So my question is it necessary to have such certifications from reputed institutions in spite of having 15 years of HR experience? So I will add a couple of things. For example, while Asha's question is very specific about SHRM certification, I would like to add design thinking, for example, or maybe there are some specializations like MBTI and so forth. Are these certifications more important than 15 years of experience is the question.
Very, very interesting question, Asha. Thanks. Pancham, yes, I think I would say knowledge in any form at any point in time is important, and I don't think it'll do any harm. It'll always benefit us. But at the same time, before we just go ahead with the fact that whether we should be going ahead with a certification at this point in time or not, in addition to having 15 years of experience, the question that we should ask is, where are we, why the certification is required, and how relevant it is. So having 10 certifications is definitely not a problem, but if at all you are just doing it for the sake of doing it because you find people doing it, who are working with you, or there is a particular scheme where you get to do 10 certificates in 3 months, all those things, if at all those are the driving forces, I would say no, that's not required. But if you are a people manager and there is a certification on people analytics, you think that you wish to contribute to a different level, if you think there is a relevant certification and you wish to go ahead with it, along with your 15 years of experience, it will still, add on to your skill set, and that's very much needed. There are a lot of things we in our organizations get restricted because we would not be able to try each and everything. Not every organization would take all the initiatives or follow the current trends which are right there outside in the market. These certifications, these case studies, these live courses, these seminars, probably they give us a virtual real window to just see through and understand what the world or what HR is going through. So yes, I mean, to sum up, I would say if at all it adds on relevance to your profile, it should be done, but definitely not just for the sake of doing it.
Well, thanks, Ankita, and I hope that Asha has got the response that she was looking for. So now I will actually change gears a bit. Now see, so a lot of people have been asking this question because I think there is a lot of apprehension about the fact that because of COVID and slowdown in the hiring market, there is actually surplus of lateral talent in the market. There are people who, for whatever reasons, are no longer having jobs, and they are available to switch assignments or to find assignments. Now, when you have a situation like this, Add to it the passing out batches, people who are passing out from MBA colleges, they will add to the labor pool. The question, therefore, that these people are asking is, what can they do to stand out in the job market as a first choice over those people who are more experienced? So Shashwati will again come to you, and then we will continue to build on this concept.
Okay, so I have been trying to, and I know there are a lot of freshers here who have been aspiring to join HR. For the last 2 months, I've been trying to hire someone with 1 year of experience for my TA team, and I haven't yet found that one person. It's been 2 months, and with lot of supply pool sitting, then I have already explained TA is so critical for us. And I have gone for, I am looking at people, for example, my TA lead who has got 15 years of experience is an MBA finance, by the way, just to add to Aman's thought process. So in fact, I have looked for people who are postgraduate in psychology to add to the TA team, so I'm just adding different thought process and skills to the team also. But I haven't found that one person. You know why? Because I feel whenever people are coming in, whether you have 1 year, whether you are a fresher, or whether you have 3 years, they are coming in with one USP which they are putting across all organizations. I think that time is gone. I have done MBA from this place. I have done this. This is my experience, and this is this. Everywhere we are speaking the same thing. I need customization. There is a need which I have, which Chael has. Most of the candidates don't even read up about the organization. Where is my customization? Where are you giving me? I'm a product in the market. So where the supply is huge, how are you customizing yourself? What is, I have a need of that one person who is a go-getter, passionate, knows the job, has attention to detail, and displays a need to learn. All these needs to be customized to my context. I am a service industry. If you say one hat fills all and I have one spill which I'm going to cut across all the interviews I'm giving, whether it's in LinkedIn, somebody is approaching me, or whether it's in WhatsApp, whether it is phone call, face-to-face interviews, there is a single spill I hear. So I think somewhere we lose out. To stand out, you have to understand who you are talking to, where you are pitching yourself, and please, the same thing, same person, if you just customize yourself and put up your strength which the other person is looking for forward, I think you're going to crack it. It's not about from where you have passed out. It's no longer about the course you have done as a fresher. It's somewhere the game changer is your customization and your passion about where you are wanting to join and whom you are approaching. I think that is missing. I still haven't found my person, so anybody interested can apply.
Actually, Shashwati, you talked about something very interesting, and when you were talking, I was in my mind playing out. There is yesterday I was talking to some people, and I was telling them that earlier we used to talk about sales, and we used to say sales uses three letters, A, B, C. Always be closing. That's what they talked about. A lot of movies are also made on the subject. And now with Daniel Pink's work, that ABC has changed. The first A is now attunement. Attunement means you should understand who you are going and applying to in this context. The second is, what does the person look for? And therefore, how should you customize your profile? How should you customize your selling pitch to make sure that the person, number one, looks at your resume and invites you for conversation? And during the conversation, how do you understand what the person needs, and then provide through your answers what you can bring to the table? The second thing that he talked about was buoyancy. The A is attunement. Second thing he talked about was buoyancy. Buoyancy is, how do you get up time and again after multiple rejections? Because the fact is, this is going to be part of our lives. Whenever there is a talent market where the talent is in abundant supply and demand is lesser actually compared to the supply, you will always have to be the first amongst equals. If you're not, chances are you will be rejected. And in fact, one of the things that Daniel Pink talks about, you should actually write a rejection letter to yourself saying why you were rejected and then work on this. And the third thing he talked about was clarity. And he talked about this and he says, you have to communicate very clearly. You have to think very clearly. You should know exactly why you want to be in HR, not by default that you had a particular score and HR was a specialization available. Or a lot of people talk about the fact that since I'm a people's person, I think I will do well in HR. But all these actually are signs of lack of clarity in terms of why we want to be in people business or HR businesses. So I think for freshers and people who are still trying to contemplate whether this is the right career choice for us, the new ABCs that I would also urge you to look for: attunement, buoyancy, clarity. Be sure why you want to be there. Understand what people want, develop those skills, showcase those skills. And third, don't be afraid of rejections. But if you don't try, you won't get rejected, but you won't get selected either. So some of these things we have to be very, very careful about. And on
Very
that
aptly
note,
put, Pancham.
yeah, thanks a lot, Shashwati. So on that note, now, Ankur, I'm now coming to you because again, I would like you to wear the talent acquisition hat. Now, Shashwati's problem, someone who she has not been able to find, despite the fact that she's very clear as to what she's looking for. So what is one advice that you would give to freshers who would, let's say there is a fresher who wants to apply to Shashwati's organization? If you were the talent acquisition head, what would you say they should do so that the profile gets noticed and once they have interview, they crack it?
So I think what I picked up from what Saswati said was that she's looking for attitude over experience. She's looking for somebody who's passionate, go-getter, and these are all parts of personality, right? And to my mind, we can always work on the behaviors, and these are some critical behaviors that are required for these roles. So my advice to the freshers is going to be work on self-awareness, work on taking feedback, work on emotional intelligence, those kind of pieces. On the knowledge front, work on the fundamentals of HR. You don't need deep knowledge about HR. Well, for example, from a recruitment perspective, what are the stages of recruitment? What role does a sourcer play? What role does an interviewer play? I think those are the fundamental basic things that you have to be clear of, right? And the third piece to my mind is the technology orientation, because with the roles getting automated, even the recruitment process to a large extent is getting automated. So you need somebody who is digitally savvy and technologically oriented. So some piece on AI, machine learning, and all those blockchains of the world and big data. So many things are there, I'm saying. So get a sense of all these pieces, which will help you adapt better when you kind of step into the corporate world. That's my piece of advice on this.
Well, thanks a lot, Ankur. And since you talked about AI, that again gave me a cue to ask the next question to Aman. And this is the question that audiences are asking, and actually quite a few people. So there is one person who is saying that almost 30% of the HR jobs are now being taken over by machines. So what is the future in HR? The second person is saying, with all the automation around us, what can we do to stay relevant? So Aman, so some of these questions that people have, apprehensions that people have, chances are some of these are also misconceptions. So I would like you to respond to this and hope to remove some of the misconceptions that people have about automation, AI, machine, and future of HR.
Yeah. So in fact, thank you. This is one of my favorite topics, right? So in fact, if you go and you search on the net, I'm telling to all the participants, and there are many websites which will tell you which roles are going to become redundant, basis, the AI and all the machine learning and all the automation that is coming. One role which actually has a future is that of HR, because HR, with its virtues of the share employee connect, empathy, and your ability to bring in critical emotional intelligence into decision making, is something which can never be replicated by machines, right? So for all those of you who think that whether HR, a career in HR is long lasting, let me tell you, it is a better career to be in than even in software development, because a lot of the software development roles will get, commoditized, and even a lot of the medical jobs will get commoditized as we speak, right? So the so-called high-end jobs. Now coming to the point that Pancham made earlier, one of the things that if you're looking out for a job at this point of time, I can tell you with great amount of confidence that if you have any kind of analytical ability, any kind of ability to look at numbers, to uh, having worked with any kind of reporting tools and so on and so forth, if you can market that to any HR leader or business leader, everyone, given that data is now the currency around which all decisions take place, be it any function in the organization, be it HR, sales, marketing, engineering, data is the currency. So I would request the participants to, if you are looking for a job, if you are in that, uh, you know, uh, uh, life stage at this point of time, spend some time honing that skill and putting that up, because that will hold you in very good stead as even go to your interviews and look at the kind of value prop that you can put on the table.
Interesting. Thank you, Aman. In fact, a related question, Dr. Ankita, this is directed to you now. So there are some people who are saying that they are not HR professionals, or they are from academics point of view, they have not studied HR, but they have studied adjacent fields. For example, there is somebody who has studied industrial psychology. Then there is somebody who has completed a master's in social work, MSW degree. The question that these people have is, what kind of career opportunities can they look forward to when they want to get into the job market?
So, see, when we talk about any skill set to people, I think you can get into any field. So I don't think there is any restriction as such now. You can see a lot of CEOs moving to HR role. You can see a lot of HR people moving to delivery role. It's not about what you start with. It's more what kind of growth and learning mindset you have, what you are interested in. When it's about the start, you can actually select what's your, I would not say comfort zone, but what's your core zone which you would want to explore, and just start with it. I mean, not every time you would need the core competence to start something, and that's the probably best part of today's era. Everything is available right there, for free, which you can learn. It's not that you have to enroll for proper courses to attain knowledge if at all you're interested in a particular field. With respect to HR, I think, as other panelists have also mentioned, you can just go in anywhere. One thing that Aman was talking about, when we say that because of technology, obviously there is a little bit of restriction. We get confused whether there will be jobs, whether we will be able to explore HR or other departments more if at all we have these diversified backgrounds. I think one question that we need is, are we able to do something which is more than what machines or AI or automation can do? To give an example, I would say, I'm sure we all remember, or we all can register that we call a customer care when we wish to know something about our credit card, and it starts directing us to press 1 and then press 2 for English or Hindi, and then if at all you want to know about the card, 3, 4, and it goes on. I'm sure all the panelists and as well as the attendees, we get so much comfort when it says press 9 if you want to directly speak to the customer care executive, because we know that whatever concerns or whatever questions we have, we can directly ask. We can interact on the other side, and that's the role of HR. Machine or automation or AI will always things, but at the same time, humans will always be required. no matter its delivery field or HR field. I think adaptability, human skills, digital skills, or digital literacy, if these things are very much there within you, and if you can be a master of these, probably any field can be explored, even if it's not a core education, but a related one.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ankita. I think people who have asked this question about specialization or specific HR degrees, hopefully you've found your answer. It is less about what you bring on the paper. It is more about what you bring in person and what you can contribute. That is the more important piece. In fact, there is another interesting question. So Shashwati, I'm going to direct this question to you, and then this same question I will bring to all the panelists, because this is actually an interesting question asked by Dr. Sanjay Deshpande. My guess is that Dr. Sanjay Deshpande is from an educational institution, and his question, therefore, is actually very relevant from campus hiring point of view. His question is, what do we expect from faculty members of these schools? Number one, is there any opportunity for faculty internships in your respective organizations? I have often seen that business organizations close the door for industry interface. So from what I understand, I think they're looking to look at how can we bridge the gap between academia and corporate. I think I would imagine that that's the question that is. So Shashwati, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I'm very happy that someone has brought this up, because anywhere I have gone, anywhere I've spoken to, I have always asked the faculty members, you are calling us. Why don't you come up and see what the corporate world is like and do something with us, so that you understand when we are talking, what we are saying. You'll have first-hand experience of it. I don't think people are closing doors. It's just that people are not aware, and maybe the faculties are not pushy enough or aggressive enough to give a proposal which has an ROI for the organizations also. Because I will not do it as because of the busy, we are so busy in our schedules, we will not do it as a something which is a social responsibility. We will do it when we see an ROI. So if one faculty member says or brings in, he is from analytics background, and he says, I'll do a project with you where I'm going to map these numbers and tell you the talent trends in your organization and your industry for the last 3 years, it makes sense to me. Then I engage with that person, and then there is a win-win situation when we say, oh yeah, then we can hire from that place also. When I'm looking at a fresher, I'll think of him and I'll say, hey, you did a great job, can you recommend someone, because you understand what I need, what my business needs, so can you place 3 people here? So that's how it grows. I think somewhere even educational institutes, and if I am a faculty member, I need to again customize. It's not I go to every person and say that Aman needs might be different, and Airtel's, the telecom industries might be different than from a marketing communication brand industry. From Chail to Samsung also the need differs. So that customization, what will that industry need? What is the need of that industry? I don't need any inputs on tech. In this pandemic, I have automated. I wish that this kind of situation had come 20 years back when I was learning. I would have automated all my operations, and then I don't know where I would be by now, of doing all kinds of value additional work. But I'm saying it's a big opportunity. So I don't need someone with a tech background, but I do need someone who has that analytics and can give me data trends, of people, and how to use technology to figure out the trends. So I think it's more about what we are doing as a win-win approach and the ROI we are giving to the industry. I think it can be done and it should be done. That's where the future generation will benefit, not just guest speakers.
No, you're right, absolutely. Because one of the things that we also noticed actually is that institutions come to us asking us to become guest lecturers, or maybe get involved with designing curriculum as advisors and so on and so forth. Having said that, very few institutions have really come up to us and said, hey, there is an action learning project. that we can do for you. Some of these could be longitudinal studies.
Correct,
And
correct.
because today the world has moved away from best practices, right? I can get hold of best practices from any public search engine, but
It's
does that
downloadable. Everything is downloadable.
correct? So the question therefore is, what works for me? Can you answer that question for me by doing a primary research on my organization? If somewhere these schools can start thinking about some of these things, this will do two things. One, the statistics that they study or the operations research that they study, there is a practical implication they can look at. For example, studying that there are four kinds of surveys or there is a Likert scale is not enough. When you design a survey questionnaire and when you see how you can actually put it to use, that's of meaning even to people. It will look smart on their resumes also, and I personally believe this will have a lot of value add to students. And wherever academia and corporate they have collaborated, we have seen huge success stories coming out of that.
Yeah.
There are enough and more examples. So that is one answer that even I thought, and I was very happy that this question was asked. The other thing, and in fact, Ankur, Aman, and Dr. Ankita, you may want to think about. I think one of the other things that I have personally also seen, and I would want your opinion, is the ability to communicate is one area where I think we schools spend less time on in terms of inculcating that as a skill, probably the most important skill. So while we study economics, we study organizational behavior, but how do I speak in one-to-many forums? How do I present my view with clarity? So while there is a managerial communications course, the question is that sufficient? Can we do much more? Because our experience in campus hiring has been very similar. We have some brilliant people that we look at, and the people who get selected versus people who don't, the biggest difference has been clarity of thought, all other things being equal. And yet we have not seen enough emphasis on some of these things. So Ankur, Aman, Ankit, I don't know what your experience has been, but this is what I thought maybe I'll table and take your views on this.
So I think being articulate, which you said, there's this expression of thoughts, right? Are you able to clearly express your point of view? Requires exposure. It cannot happen without exposure and one of the good ways is these multiple projects, internships, for which a lot of companies are engaging students. I think students should raise their hand and proactively get into these kind of project modes and internship secondments, because that will give them the right exposure and the environment in which they have to express themselves, right? It is not about expressing yourself only in a classroom setup. It's also about looking at that entire dynamic, constraints within organization and then expressing yourself. So my only request is, beyond the books and the of course the lectures and the sessions, there should be more practical exposure which students should take, by participating in these activities. That's my sense.
Thanks, Ankur. So Aman, your thoughts on, for example, in your organization, how can academia corporate partnership flourish? What kind of things we can do?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with what Pancham you said, and Shashwati and Ankur. One of the things when we started this discussion, I said, when we have gone to campuses, one of the things that we've realized is that students have a very limited view of what even, and I'm talking about people who are graduating in HR or majoring in HR. Even they have a very limited view of what the HR function does. It is only limited to the electives that they have done. So, to the academia, I would say that how they can bring in more contemporary knowledge of practices, so that when the students come into the work, they are not starry-eyed to say, okay, this is how it actually happened. The whole idea of doing a major or an elective is that you get students prepared, and there's a whole topic that is of discussion around the readiness of our talent, and actually how employable our talent is at the end of the day. Also, a lot of organizations have now started involving the industry in their academic councils when they are looking at their curriculum design and so on and so forth. My only request would be, at this point of time, please get in more and more industry speakers to come and speak and fashion the courses for your students, so that we are actually preparing them in the right manner, and we are, increasing their employability, and also helping them make an informed choice of what all career choices are there within HR, so that they are also better equipped. Because Shashwati mentioned some time back, okay, you have to make your pitch, you have to make your own, value prop. But if I don't know as a student what all is on offer, what does HR actually do? How is an HR business partner different from an HR ops? How is that different from a COE or a corporate role? Then how will I as a student ever have that clarity of what really interests me, and for me to then create that value prop for me? So I think educational institutes need to bridge this gap of learning, so move beyond the conceptual to the contemporary, I would say.
Okay, interesting. Well, thanks, Anand. So, Dr. Ankita, so I'm going to extend this question when I come to you, and the extension is that, for example, there is a huge opportunity when we look at case method of teaching, because most of the management programs use a lot of cases. So, in your experience, how can, for example, organizations help academia by using some of our real life problems as cases, uh, in the process helping them, and in the process helping ourselves, and what stops us from doing it currently?
Yeah, so Pancham, I think the easiest way to learn is to experience it. I think colleges are doing enough at their end, be it mock sessions or projects or industrial projects, just to ensure that the students get the feel of what they would be handling a little later. But how corporates are helping, instead of taking them only for 3 months on a project, now giving it to the digital world. Most of the things are virtual. People are working from home. And we know that even students, they have enough time in hand where they can contribute or they can be part of life projects with the corporates. And I know personally, including ours, where we are, collaborating with institutions, and we are telling them that this batch can work with us on these particular projects as shadow resources, where they get to know what's happening. So when tomorrow you hire from that same institute, the students, they know much more about the culture of the organization, how we work in the organization, instead of probably just going theoretically or probably being in the system for 3 months. So that kind of more frequent collaboration or connect with the institutions is very much required. And because of the virtual and fluid world at this point in time, I think a lot of that has become the reality, and that's helping organizations as well as the institutes to a great extent.
Interesting. In fact, so based on what you just talked about, there is another interesting request that has come in, and that request is from armed forces. So, so what they're talking about actually is that, uh, so they are saying that armed forces provide a huge pool of officers, each with more than 20 years of experience, who have held various HR roles. They possess immense soft skills. They are sincere, hardworking, passionate, role-changing, capable. The qualities that we have said that we actually look for in HR people. So how can we also partner with them, with armed forces, to get them into mainstream human resources functions, instead of only moving into security or facility management roles? So Shakti, this is because we started this question trail with you. I think I'll come back to you with this question.
Sure. So honestly, it's not to, let me give our example, Chail example. So in Chail, we have our lead in compliances, ethics and compliances is from Air Force. Our one of our top leads in procurement is from Air Force. And of course, in our facilities and administration, he's from Army. So that's the usual facilities and admin. But there are many others, not just HR. I think there are many other functional areas, whether it's procurement, whether it's ethics compliances, whether it's CSR. In fact, a group like Samsung, which is a high believer of transparency, discipline, etc., which is in our culture, which I always say our grandparents used to follow, we seem to have forgotten. So the same cultural DNA is here. So we prefer, in fact, we look for people who have that kind of a background. Why not in HR? It's not that there is there is a line which is drawn. But after 15 years of armed forces, I think because the opportunities in HR are less, it's not that the roles are too many. There are already people who have been doing HR in the corporate world for so many years, so you might not get the same level of you might not enter at the same level. If you're willing to learn and grow, I think it's there. It's not that it's not there, because it's my experience. We have already hired in different functional areas people from armed forces. So don't get disheartened. I think it's just about finding the right opportunity. But yes, in HR, the opportunities are fewer to come in at a senior role in HR. I think that's the reality.
Correct. In fact, that's also what you have done, Shashwati, is you have answered another question where people have said, why are opportunities in HR less? It is because HR as an overall function of headcount, and therefore the number of HR roles will be fewer than many other functions. And therefore maybe the competition would be much, much more fiercer. Number one. The second thing I wanted to actually bring to table is that a lot of people from armed forces background have actually done well in HR. For example, I know a gentleman called Samir Nagra. He's a very good friend of mine, and he actually is heading learning. Last I know is United Health Group. He was heading learning and development, and he retired from armed forces. Yuvraj, who was head of Make My Trip, is an ex-armed forces person. Similarly, there is a gentleman called Colonel Shalish, who heads Expert Connections, which is a recruitment organization. He is, of course,
Yeah.
Colonel Shalish is a retired colonel. So the fact is that we have many such cases. You may not find them too many to start with, but when we start digging, chances are we should be able to find some. Now, there is one last question, Aman. I'm actually going to direct this at you because this question is slightly, I would say, unusual. This is why it is unusual. They say that companies hire cream students. People with average marks like us, they don't get hired. So what do we do?
Okay, so let me tell you, I was a 70%er all my life. Okay, so let me begin by saying that I was a 70%er, and let me tell you that Shashwati said that they look for, she's looking for aptitude. I tell you from my experience of being in HR for so many years, and even before that being a student, it really does not matter after a point of time, and okay, so you are saying not after a point of time, but even if I'm going to be beginning as a fresher, does it matter? No, it does not matter. There are 4 other seasoned HR professionals. I will, ask them one question. When we go to campuses, apart from the fact that someone is cleared that basic minimum requirement that we have put forth, do we even go back and see whether the person was a gold medalist or was that? Very little times does that make a difference. If anything, it could make a difference in a current situation. I think what is important today, like I said, the currency is data from the business side, and from the candidate side, the currency is skill. So if you are able to develop a particular skill, if you are able to talk about that, if you are able to understand, my request to everyone is, whenever you're going in for that interview, please take out time to understand the business of that organization. And if you are then able to build a value proposition based on that and marry your skill set along with that, and you can't be everything to everyone. So don't say that, okay, whatever I've seen in the website, half of the times we might not even understand. Early on in our careers, We might not even be able to understand what a sale does or what a Tata Com does. We are in such technical jobs, all of us, right? But don't get disheartened by the fact that you're not the cream or you're not the top 10 percentile or something like that. Actually, that is not how careers get defined over a period of time. Let me tell you, this is the biggest myth. And I'm saying this very, very emphatically because I'm a living, breathing example of that. So please don't make that as a mental block. That's the and pardon me but to say this, but that will be the most stupid thing that you can do to yourself so early on in your career when you are just starting off. So please spread your wings, see what all skills, what all other value prop you can bring on the table and work on that, and just go and go and just crack the next interview and the next opportunity that you get.
Well, thanks a lot, Aman. So I'm cognizant of the time. So I think at this time, what I would want to do is take a couple of minutes to quickly summarize what we covered, because I think we covered quite a few areas, and it is only fair that audiences should actually come to look at a concise form what all we have covered. So we talked about the fact that this is a difficult time. There are a lot of people in the job market looking for opportunities, and therefore for people to stand out, they need to first make sure they understand the business they're applying to and the value they bring to the table. And their resumes have to also talk about the same thing. The same passion has to come in the interview room, because there are HR people, HR managers, HR leaders who are more open to hiring freshers with drive than people with experience but with no drive or no demonstrable knowledge gain or skill building evidence over a period of time. So it's not that freshers have a disadvantage as long as they have the drive to learn. The second is, when we get on a job, let's not start thinking about immediately doing strategic jobs. Let's start building our base by understanding the role, the administrative piece. Do it right first, and then you move to doing the right things over a period of time. The third thing that we talked about is, it is also important for educational institutions to start partnering better with industry. And from industry's point of view, I think the onus is also on HR leaders to maybe engage academia more, to start looking at some of these skill building avenues. And from HR and the talent acquisition leaders point of view, with the world of in India, especially with new labor codes coming in, platform workers being defined, gig workers being defined, chances are more and more opportunities will come in, more and more new models of hiring would come in. So we should not close the door on those people who are not academically maybe very accomplished in terms of marks, but we should look at again people who are smart in many other ways, which would include people with specializations outside of HR, or people who may not have great marks, but they may have other important skills that we can easily put to use. The other thing that we also talked about was, there is no need to be afraid of automation. In fact, automation only allows us to move mundane routine tasks to computers so that we can start doing more value added, engaging, strategic business work. So we have to embrace it. And as we go along, with the advent of technology, data related work, speed related work, collaboration related work will become more important rather than hierarchy. That's why concepts like agile, sprint, design thinking come in. So we should start thinking about how do we build our skills in some of those areas. If we are able to do that, chances are, even if we struggle initially, over a period of 35 years old career, I'm sure we will be able to find a space that we can say is actually my space and we have done something worthwhile. On that note, I would like to thank all the speakers for your insights. Actually, I thought it was very well done. Why? Because you brought in practitioners' view. And some of the questions also allowed us to put some context from the academia's view, the practitioner's view, as to why we don't engage. And I think what you talked about was heartening to see that the traditional definition of tick mark or CTQs are also changing, and therefore the way we are looking at candidates is also changing. We hope that more and more companies do that, and therefore we have that more and more. We hope that more and more people who join the workforce really enjoy their time in the workforce. without worrying about what CGPA they got and what specialization they got. Okay? On that note, thanks a lot. That's it from all of us. Thank you for being part of this.